There's a spreadsheet sitting on a desk at RACQ head office in Brisbane right now that most car owners will never lay eyes on. And buried inside it is a number that decides something far more important than any brochure ever will. Whether the car in your driveway is quietly making you money or slowly bleeding you dry. One service invoice at a time. Here's what that looks like in real life. Two people walk into a mechanic's workshop on the same day for the same job, on cars that looked almost identical on the showroom floor. Same size, every single one. Same price bracket across the board. Same badge appeal when they signed the papers. One drives away with a bill for $180. The other drives away with a bill for $2,400. Same job, different brand. And by the time most owners work out which side of that gap they landed on, they've already signed the loan. This isn't a video about horsepower or infotainment screens or which badge looks best in the driveway. This is about the number nobody talks about at the dealership. What it actually costs to keep a car running year after year, long after the new car smell has worn off. And according to Australia's largest annual ownership cost surveys, the gap between the best brands and the worst isn't measured in hundreds of dollars. Over 5 years in some categories, it stretches into the tens of thousands, Randy. So we went looking for the brands sitting on the right side of that gap. Not the ones Australians buy because they're exciting, but the ones they keep buying because they simply refuse to become expensive. There are 6 of them. And the first one will surprise almost nobody who's shopped for a car in the last 2 years for exactly the wrong reason. 1. Suzuki, the brand nobody expected to win. Suzuki has spent a decade being written off as the budget option, the car you buy when you can't afford something better. So here's the part that should stop you scrolling. In RACQ's 2025 Vehicle Operating Cost Survey, which tracks 55 popular models across 7 categories, factoring in purchase price, finance, insurance, fuel, servicing and tyres over a 5-year, 15,000 kilometre a year ownership period. The Suzuki Swift Hybrid wasn't just competitive. It was named the single cheapest car to own and operate in the entire country for 2025, landing at roughly $874 a month once everything is added up. A separate national running cost study covering more than 70 of Australia's top-selling cars found Suzuki's Baleno GL went even lower, about $163 a week, the lowest figure recorded in the entire survey. Now, small cars are supposed to be cheap. That's not the interesting part. The interesting part is how Suzuki gets there without cutting corners mechanically. Simple, low-stress 3-cylinder engines, straightforward mild hybrid systems, and a parts network that's never needed to chase. Premium pricing, because the brand never tried to be premium in the first place. For someone in their 60s eyeing a second car or a downsizer, that's not a compromise. That's the entire point of the car. But raw running costs are only half the story. Because the brand that comes next doesn't just win on what you pay, it wins on what you can trust. Toyota, the brand mechanics recommend to their own family. Toyota's Corolla and Yaris show up near the bottom of the cost tables in nearly every major Australian survey, with the Yaris Ascent recorded at under $172 a week to run. But that's not actually the number that matters most here. The number that matters is quieter, and it shows up years later. Resale value. Because Toyota's servicing costs stay predictable for the entire ownership period, and because replacement parts stay genuinely affordable thanks to sheer sales volume, insurers routinely offer some of the most competitive premiums in the country on Corolla-based models. Repair bills after a minor prang stay reasonable instead of spiralling. This is the brand mechanics quietly steer their own parents toward. Not because it's flashy, but because when something does go wrong, it rarely goes wrong in a way that costs real money. If you've ever wondered why tradies, retirees and rural Australians won't budge from Toyota, no matter what else hits the market, this is the reason sitting underneath the loyalty. It was never sentiment, it was arithmetic the whole time. And that arithmetic is exactly what the next brand borrowed, then quietly rebuilt from the inside out. 3. Mazda. the reputation most people over 50 still haven't caught up to. For years, Mazda was the stylish one, the brand you paid a bit extra for if you wanted a car that actually felt good to drive. That reputation is now out of date, and most buyers haven't noticed. Recent Australian ownership research places Mazda among the lowest maintenance cost brands in the country. It's mechanical. Mazda's Skyactiv engineering philosophy deliberately simplifies engine and transmission design to cut down the number of parts that can actually fail. Fewer failure points means fewer workshop visits, and fewer workshop visits mean the servicing bill stays flat. Year after year, instead of quietly climbing, the way it tends to with more complex European rivals. If you want a car that feels a touch more refined behind the wheel without inheriting the repair anxiety that usually comes attached to refinement, Mazda has become the brand splitting that difference. Regional dealers have noticed it too. Mazda's parts logistics have become some of the most reliable in the country, which matters enormously if you're not living within an easy drive of a capital city. Refinement without the repair bill is one way to win an Australian buyer's trust. The next brand took a completely different approach. It simply removed the fear altogether. For Hyundai, the brand that sold confidence, not just a car. Hyundai backs its Australian range with a 5-year warranty stretching to a genuinely extraordinary 1 million kilometres, among the most generous ownership guarantees offered by any mainstream brand in the country. Sit with that number for a second, because it tells you something the ads never will. No manufacturer offers that kind of coverage on a car it secretly expects back in the workshop. Pair that warranty with one of the most extensive dealer and service networks in Australia, and the practical effect is that spare parts and repairs stay reasonably priced, no matter your postcode, rather than turning into a lottery depending on where you live. For older Australians who've been burned before, bought a European badge that looked impressive in the driveway, then watched it quietly cost a fortune. The moment the warranty expired, Hyundai built its entire modern strategy around removing that exact risk. And the used car market has started pricing that trust in too, with Hyundai holding its resale value noticeably better than it did a decade ago. If Hyundai removed the fear, the next brand on this list had to fight something harder to shift, a reputation that simply hadn't caught up to reality yet. Brand number 5, Kia. The numbers were good long before the image was. Kia has spent years fighting a perception problem in Australia, even while the underlying numbers quietly told a different story. Like sister brand Hyundai, Kia backs its range with a 7-year warranty, one of the longest in the entire industry. And that warranty isn't a marketing flourish. It's underwritten by genuinely low failure rates on the brand's most popular models. What tends to catch people off guard the first time they actually research this brand? How competitively priced Kia's scheduled servicing has become against its direct rivals. A shift that's happened quietly over the past several years, as the brand chased exactly the reputation this video is about. If you're the Australian buyer who cross-shopped Kia against a European SUV in the same price bracket and picked the European badge because it felt more prestigious sitting in the driveway, the 5-year running cost data tells a very different story about which decision actually protected your bank balance. Which brings us to the last brand on this list. And in some ways, it might be the most quietly persuasive of all 6. Brand number 6 is Nissan, the detail most buyers never think to check. Multiple Australian cost of ownership studies have identified Nissan as offering some of the lowest maintenance expenses of any mainstream brand sold here, driven largely by exceptional parts availability. That sounds minor, it isn't. A car can be mechanically brilliant and still become an expensive car to own if the parts needed to fix it are scarce, back-ordered, or shipped in from overseas. Nissan backs this up with a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, removing the anxiety that catches out owners of brands with capped warranty distances. For grey nomads and long-distance drivers racking up serious kilometres every year, that single word, unlimited, can be worth more than almost anything else on the spec sheet. It means the warranty is still protecting you at 150,000 kilometres, not just the first $100,000. What these 6 brands actually have in common. Here's the pattern, and it's not the thing most buyers go looking for. None of these 6 are the cars that turn heads in a car park. None of them have the biggest touchscreen or the most aggressive styling. What they share is something far more valuable to anyone who's owned enough cars to know the sticker price is only the opening bid. Predictable running costs, strong parts availability, and warranty terms long enough that the manufacturer is clearly backing its own engineering. Now compare that against the brands sitting at the other end of these same surveys. Heavy-duty 4-wheel drives and prestige badges, where 5-year running costs can climb past $29,000 a year, and the pattern stops looking like a coincidence. The car market rewards flash. The ownership experience rewards discipline. These 6 brands are the ones quietly protecting Australian bank accounts, while everyone else is still arguing about which one looks better in the driveway. If this just saved you from finding that out the expensive way, there's a lot more sitting inside these cost surveys that most dealers would rather you never read. So before you pay attention to the dealer's words, watch this video that pops up on the screen. Here, I detail 6 cars that require the least repairs and best reliable car for seniors.